Welcome to War Room Impeachment. It's episode 121. We're live from Capitol Hill. It's Saturday, the 18th of January, the year of our Lord, 2020. I've got Jason Miller, my wingman on the Trump 2016 campaign. He was the senior communication strategist and advisor and also the communications director for the transition of the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. In fact, we're only yards from where the President of the United States was impeached about a month ago to the day, and is now going to stand trial in the trial of the century, as President Trump calls it, about the crime of the century, the coup that tried to bring him down. Also honored today to be joined by a former special assistant to the President of the United States in the West Wing, Boris Epstein, and one of our top surrogates. In fact, you did the daily call.
That's right.
You did the daily call to message to the surrogates.
That's right.
Every day. That was a tough one. Every day in the campaign, but Boris have the bullwhip out there with the talking points. But it was very organized. Fantastic job, great job as special assistant to the president. Also, a media personality at Sinclair Broadcasting, the great folks over at Sinclair. We're today on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Salem Broadcasting nationwide, America's Voice, the top streaming platform, and has the rights to do all the Trump rallies. You see the guys, America's Voice, throughout the nation, americasvoice.news, and of course, Chris Ruddy and the team at Newsmax TV. Honored to be part of that. Who did the best of this weekend? Who did the was it you or Raheem? I guess
the best of must have been Raheem.
Must have Raheem.
I didn't do it. So
okay. It must have been
maybe
Raheem.
It was Vish. Vish, did you do the best of this week?
I've been on assignment all week up in New York trying to do media to support the president's really historic announcement of USMCA and the China deal. Curtis Ellis from the PAC is going to be joining us here later in the program to talk about that. Boris is here all throughout the show to help us work through impeachment and to the Trump presidency and how successful, or if you think unsuccessful, what it's failed to do. We'll talk about all of it. But let's go to there's something bothering me about this, Jason and Boris, and I think for the country, you got to get to the bottom of it. This Rachel Maddow thing, it's not sitting well. Chris, here's the drill. And I think Phil Griffin at MSNBC, and I think Rachel Maddow's production team, she's had her all-time highest ratings. I'm not talking about how the show's produced. It's obviously a very high-quality show. I don't agree with, obviously, its angle of attack, but it's highly produced. But here's what upsets me. We're here and supposed to be a process that's only happened a couple of times in the country's history. It's as serious as you could possibly get. You're trying to impeach and remove a president of the United States, right? And put him on trial in front of the world, in a world on fire on economics and radical terrorism and wars throughout the world. And I want to start with Nancy Pelosi. We've got that clip from last night, Bill Maher, and then I want to get into this because I know on the right we're always attacking the mainstream media, and opposition party media at first was more powerful than the Democratic Party after Trump crushed them in 2016. And this is why you were the best communications person we ever had. In a field we had great communications people, but you were kind of hunkered down and had this great team because we knew that the opposition was the media. But I never actually thought it would really take a role in partnership with the government to do investigations of people and not disclose that and get involved in a process like impeachment, like MSNBC and Rachel Maddow have inserted themselves in this process. So let's go to Nancy Pelosi first. And Boris, don't be shy. You're never shy before. Don't jump in here when you want to. But let's go to Nancy Pelosi's comments first.
Yeah, I'm going to read you the brief comment from Nancy. Otherwise, our blood pressures will just, I think, go through the roof. And I'm already on high blood pressure meds, so we don't want to have me explode on Saturday morning. Okay, so Pelosi, let's just put this in context. We're in the middle of this impeachment witch hunt.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi transfers over the articles of impeachment to the Senate, then hops on a plane to go see Bill Maher to do the Bill Maher show. So that's just keeping it all in context. This is where we are. This is peak 2020, full TDS outrage. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, says, "You are impeached forever. No matter what the Senate does, it can never be erased." And then Bill Maher asked a question about what would you say to the president or if the president were listening. And Pelosi says, "If I knew that the president is listening, I would want him to know that he is impeached forever. And he is impeached forever because he used the office of the president to try to influence a foreign country for his personal and political benefit." So that's the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. Boris?
It just shows that they know they have nothing on the merits, and they're trying to play this psychological warfare game, which obviously will fail because there's a much stronger person in the White House against her. But that's what she's doing. I mean,
but that's pure psychological warfare, right?
100%.
And
that's
she said this. This is a meme she's used now over the last week. You're impeached forever. Remember, she has made this speech here in this city. You're impeached forever, right?
Yeah, but you know what? He's also president forever. He won the presidency. I strongly believe
He'll also be acquitted forever.
He'll be acquitted forever. I strongly believe he'll be reelected. That's why I joined the Trump 2020 advisory board. We're going to win this election in November, and this is going to be one of these things that boomerangs on Democrats and boomerangs on her. I mean, this is the person who said that you have to be somber about it, and then she's giving out gold pens like you're in a circus. She's made this whole thing a total joke, even beyond what it is, because the articles are complete nonsense.
But here's where I think it gets, I agree with you on everything you just said, but here's where I think it gets dangerous for the country. She slow-walked this thing for a reason. And she kept saying, I want a fair trial. And even, the media started turning on a little bit. Even some Democrats started questioning it. They were about to have a jailbreak. And nobody could quite figure out. She'd done this master strategy game. She got the polling going her direction before people got organized to push back. And you couldn't figure it out. Nobody could, on the show every day we'd have people come on. You couldn't quite, it didn't hold tight like the rest of her stuff did. And then all of a sudden, we see the MSNBC, we see the beatification project of Saint Lev Parnas. Saint Lev Parnas is now in beatification. We see Lev Parnas and we see the GAO report, right? This is what she was waiting for. She knew she didn't have it. She slow walked it for a reason, but that had to be in collusion with the media.
But here's a question on that, though. Why not wait on the vote then and get the information before you vote and have it in the articles? Because that would actually make it viable from the legal perspective.
100%.
Still BS, but from the legal perspective.
And the Republicans who see it, you debate it. Because that wouldn't play to the thing. He was a clear and present danger. It had to be urgency, vote. We need to vote.
Right.
So the New York Times actually answers that question for us this morning. Ken Vogel's story, which is very notable, he writes, House Democrats have been releasing the contents of Mr. Parnas' devices over the past week in an effort to bolster their demand that witnesses be permitted to testify in the Senate trial.
And that's from a news story, not from an opinion
That's
piece.
from Ken Vogel. Now, remember...
Pretty straight reporter.
Pretty straight reporter. He wrote that really good story going back to, just kind of the origins of this and the actual Ukraine influence in the 2016 election, which I think Politico has been trying to scrub, or they're trying to, they're trying to push down. And it's, poor
That
Ken.
was the one that triggered some of the activity in the White House, right?
Correct.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and they want to pretend that story was never written. And, Ken's over the New York Times, and they're like, man, remember that story? It's like this. He has like this, scarlet letter on him for having written this story about Ukraine. But
nobody goes to lunch with him. He's alone in the lunchroom.
He's got the red P of Politico.
Poor Ken Vogel with like a paper bag and his peanut butter and jelly sandwich and the fake.
At the non-cool kid table.
Right, he's alone. He's all alone.
He's on his own island.
And all he wanted to do was, hate President Trump. But I want to dive into this for a moment because obviously there have been these strategic oppo drops that Shifty Schiff has been doing with his partner, with Rachel Maddow, which Steve, you hit the point, and Zero Hedge did a great write-up of it, of your comments yesterday on Fox saying there should be an investigation. I mean, there absolutely should. I mean, if Rachel Maddow and her team have been working with the Schiff and his folks for months on this, and they were intentionally holding things back and gaming this, then, to this point, I think, they become fact witnesses in this. I think there's some real...
I don't even know why we need an investigation. I think MSNBC, for full disclosure, they're always talking about transparency. Why don't they just come forward and give us the whole timeline, the whole TikTok, when they started, what they did, all the emails, just like, they're dumping on Rachel Maddow last night, which the reason the show today is about the late night dump yesterday about Parnas and Devin Nunes and Derek Harvey. Why don't they just do this? Let's have a complete dump. Let's be fair and open. I'm sure it was all above board.
It's the same network that still has Joy Reid on its lineup after all her emails. She lied about all the nasty comments she made, the hateful comments in the past on her blog. Said, it wasn't me, I was hacked. And then it came out she was literally lying, and they still keep her around. So they protect their own at MSNBC.
Which, by the way, single funniest moment from the 2016 campaign going inside baseball. So Hallie Jackson gets her show on MSNBC, and Boris goes on the very first day, and it was peak Boris performance. And I'm saying this in all sincerity. I've never seen someone dominate a show host in the way that you did in that particular show. And so afterwards, I tweeted out the Hallie Jackson show on MSNBC with Boris Epstein, like as if you're the co-host for the show.
No, hold it. We got to keep, because I know people. One of the reasons people come there. I used to always tell Boris. I said, look, the program, the idea here is we want you invited back on these shows. Right? You can't go in and bench press. Everything with Boris was a bench pressing exercise. I said, you're amazing, and I know that the boss loves seeing it, but we want to get you invited back on these shows. The purpose is to have you on as a. You can't bench press host every day.
Didn't get invited back on that one.
No, exactly.
But what did she?
I'm so shocked.
She called Jason, right?
Yeah. The conversation was off the record, but let's just say
it was directed one way too. I'm sure.
Yeah, Hallie does have some fight in her. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, she's good.
Hallie's good on TV, by the way.
She's terrific.
She's
terrific.
terrific. And I would say, in all seriousness, if MSNBC wanted to be a real news outlet, then they would go and take Hallie Jackson and give her a primetime spot and go and say, we're going to be real deal journalists.
Right.
There's an important point I want to make sure in this kind of this Parnas dump and what the Democrats are doing and with their tool here, Rachel Maddow. This isn't about trying to get Lev Parnas to be a witness. Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff have been asked about the credibility of Parnas, and both of them took a walk.
Yeah.
This is not.
Yeah, they don't want him crossed.
They don't
want him crossed.
No.
They want it all out there. Like he said, I'm not looking for a debate. I'm just looking to get the truth out.
Right, exactly, which is code for I'm running the Michael Cohen playbook.
But tell about you two guys, your communication. I want to make sure one of the reasons the audience comes through is how this stuff works. Every day, it's another dump of stuff, and
of course,
and they have it's like theater. They know last night, the episode was starring Devin Nunes and Derek Harvey. So every day they've got a dump that comes out starring it. This is all pre-programmed.
Well, they bleed it out, but here's the problem. What they don't understand: the country doesn't live in the bubble that they live in. So they think that, oh my God, we've got a hand scribbled note that Lev Parnas is giving us. Everyone is really going to care. But in the end, most Americans don't care. Somebody in Michigan doesn't care.
Okay, but what I don't like about that, see, I don't buy that argument. I just don't. When you say that, because then you're saying we hope they don't care because of the way this stuff's presented. But look at Daily Mail. Daily Mail's now they took all the phone. They took all the. I can't get up.
But here's why
Daily Mail is like the People magazine of kind of political news, right? They get political news up there, but you got the Daily Mail now leading with his dump. We ought to get that up on the site. But they took the Lev Parnas selfie dump and put it up there so the general population can see it. That's why we got to combat this back. You just can't. I've never liked that idea of just waving it off its inside.
No, we have to fight it. But what I'm saying to you is, if you look at the numbers, if you look nationally, and you look where the economy is, and USMCA, as you said, and the phase one China deal, not what we want yet, but what we will have in the end. The president's support is not being dented by this. It's a big deal in terms of what's going on with impeachment, but in terms of a reelect, in terms of the president's approval, it doesn't make a dent.
It's the signal and the noise, but what you don't want to have is the signal to start to get traction, and that's why I think we got to blow this thing up. I think you got to attack Parnas head on. And I think Parnas is a good witness for the president because the foreign minister and Zelensky, if they want to have Parnas, we get to cross him, have Parnas, because you're going to see the weakness of the case. But we get Zelensky and the foreign minister. The foreign minister blew this guy up. He said he's a stone-cold liar.
Well, he's already indicted for it.
Yeah, exactly. So he's singing for a supper with the feds.
You know how it is. It's when you have from legal background, as a lawyer, I'll tell you, if you're involved in a criminal case and the other side has a witness or you have a witness that has already been indicted for lying, your case is 100% weaker. Because that's an unreliable witness. The number one question on cross: were you indicted? Are you charged with lying?
Right.
Yes. Well.
So I want to make sure people understand what. So the last several nights we've had both Lev Parnas interviews with Maddow and with Anderson Cooper, and also these the House committee then magically coordinated.
It's been 6 hours of prime time.
Yes, 6 hours of prime time.
2 hours of Maddow. It's been 4 hours of prime time.
And they're dumping out all these.
He's not a handsome guy.
No, other the hair. I'm trying to figure out the hair.
I can't figure it out.
That's why when people said
it's one of the lollipop kids off of Wizard of Oz. It is. It's got that thing in the front. Lev, I'm not dumping on you. We'd love to have you on the show. I'm not dumping on you, but it does remind me of the lollipop kids.
That's when Lev Parnas' name was
the lollipop.
When his name was thrown out to President Trump, Trump's like, I don't know who this guy is. But then if you showed a picture of the hair, I guarantee you President Trump would be like, oh, I saw that hair once. I was like, what
And
is
I
going
stayed
on?
away from it.
Yeah, and I was like, it scared me. It scared the kids. So, but here's the thing with, last night's drop, the New York Times and Washington Post, everyone else was writing up, Wall Street Journal.
Well, hold it. They got a pre-drop. Those stories don't come that form unless they're seeing the stuff in advance, don't you think?
Oh,
You
yeah.
think-
They've had this.
We've never experienced that
No,
before, right?
That's the other thing that people understand. Those guys are seeing it. Those stories come and they got 5 bylines. And
Right.
It's all perfectly fit
Oh, my
together.
God.
How did they do this in a half hour?
So unpack the characters a little bit. So Devin Nunes, who's the ranking Republican on House Intel Committee, used to be the chairman of it, and Derek Harvey, who's the lead investigator, used to be at the White House, was on the national security team,
An American hero.
an American hero. And Derek Harvey, just so people realize this, Derek Harvey, colonel in the Army, correct? His job, like his sole job, it's like, what is your job description? Is to investigate things. I mean, he is a lead investigator for Republicans.
Let me give you an example. As an investigator, they sent him during the Iraq War. They sent him kind of behind the lines to go in Anbar province and come back and report back what was going on. He's the guy that came back. And he went over like Lawrence of Arabia and just lived over there and came back. He came back and reported to Cheney and to President Bush and all of them, Rumsfeld, we're losing this war. He was the guy that went and investigated, spent 6 months, came back, and that's how you had the search. That's the quality of stuff. So this guy's a serious player.
And I want to read you just 2 quotes from the story. So the New York Times writes, the WhatsApp messages show Mr. Harvey working with Mr. Parnas to arrange interviews with Ukrainian officials who claimed wrongdoing by the Bidens and by Ukrainians in 2016. Good. And the Washington Post writes, and this is actually an exchange between Parnas and Harvey. Also, do you want to interview the general prosecutor who got ditched by Biden? Also, the anti-corruption prosecutor? Let me know, Parnas wrote on April 19th. Does tomorrow work? Harvey responded. Thank you, Derek Harvey, for doing your job. And I wish you'd had more time. I mean, given more money and more bandwidth
Resources,
to go
right.
and more resources to go and pursue this. So, I mean, Derek Harvey is doing what he is supposed to be doing, and that's why you're not seeing I don't think a bigger thing on this. The media knows they're taking it's almost like a sugar high, like, oh wow, we have some communications, let's go and dive into it. But what's actually there?
Could we go to another question from the other side too? If they are so concerned about Derek Harvey, whose job it is to investigate, why are we not concerned about Schiff's team and their relations with the whistleblower?
Exactly. That's my whole point. That's the Rachel Maddow and the whistleblower and all that. If this thing of Derek Harvey's blowing people's heads up,
Right.
then let's just get everything out.
Could
Let's get it all on the table.
Can you imagine how much coordination there took place between this whistleblower whose name we supposedly don't know, but everyone knows, and Schiff's team and Rachel Maddow and whoever it is on the media side? I mean, Schiff has admitted to lying about having discussions and his team having discussions with the supposed whistleblower, who we know really wasn't a whistleblower because it was all fifth party information.
I want to get back to a point. Is what's happening now with Saint Lev Parnas and the beatification process?
The czar of the grifters.
The czar of the grifters. Does this raise it up to what we go back to, which I was never a fan of, and that is you bring him in on Tuesday and you vote to dismiss. That this thing's now devolved to a farce. On a global stage, people are looking at this and they're going, the United States govern itself? You got all this crazy stuff happening. You've got people like Lev Parnas being pulled in at the last second. Is the president right? Is it now? We've been long trial guys. Let's get everybody up there. You take Bolton, we'll take the whistleblower. You take Lev Parnas, we'll take Zelensky and
because
and Brennan.
What this is telling the American public and the world: Alexander Vindman, Bill Taylor, Fiona Hill, George Kent, Gordon Sondland, Jennifer Williams, Marie Yovanovitch. This was all a joke. We didn't need to have any of these people come through because they didn't find jack squat. So all of that time, all of those hearings, this secret star chamber hearings, it was a joke. They didn't come up with a single blanking thing.
And she knew it. Nancy Pelosi knew it. That's why she slow walked it.
And that's why she was against it in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. But against the beginning, and then even as forced into it and did it, and then when they had it, she slow walked it. And when they made the decision to slow walk it, she gave that speech on that day, we're not going to send it over. She says, "Oh, I got the idea from watching John Dean on CNN." Remember, she said, or MSNBC. I said,
Another criminal.
I got the idea from doing that. What we're going to find is that's a lie, because they were already having conversations with MSNBC about what they had and could they get this stuff delivered quickly enough from the Southern District of New York.
To your point, America is the hegemon in the world. We are the leading power in the world. But we have got China nipping at our heels. Russia's an
Nipping at our
adversary.
heels? A little more than nipping. Keep going.
All right, don't get crazy.
Keep
All right,
going.
all right.
I'm going to go on my anti-CCP thing. If
All
you
right.
keep-
Hold on. By the way, so for anyone who's just listening and doesn't see the video, Steve is clutching his 5S with the screen cracked, and he's about ready to smack Boris over the head with it. So that's
I said China first.
Okay,
All right,
fine.
I said
Good,
China
good,
first.
Good.
China is challenging us. Challenging. Russia's an adversary. Iran wants to kill America. And what's Nancy Pelosi focused on? What's Jerry Nadler focused on? What's Adam Schiff? The head of House Intel is not focused on protecting America, keeping us safe and secure. They're focused on the Trump derangement syndrome and taking down his president using some joker left Parnas.
If you say that is campaign spin, and he's supposed to do that because he's now in the campaign, this is what reinforces it, though. What reinforces it when you bring a character like Lev Parnas,
Right.
And Morning Joe and these guys are treating him like, even Jake Tapper said, "Hey guys, we're treating this guy like Theodore Roosevelt, right?" When you lose Jake Tapper, right? When you lose Jake Tapper,
well, and even Rachel Maddow, when she's doing the introduction to her segments, she's like, this man is wearing an ankle bracelet while he's doing this interview, and I kept telling him, "Are you sure you want to do
well,
this?"
she was up front. She goes, "I anticipated in doing this, the attorney would answer every question." The attorney sits there as a static display the entire time.
I feel bad for the I actually thought about this as an attorney. Why would you want yourself to be out? I mean, how much of a bottom feeder can you be that you want to be on television next to the czar of the grifters, and now every client you have down the line goes, "Wait, you represented that guy?"
Isn't the guy in the marijuana business? He's representing the hemp or whatever.
Or
it
maybe
is.
he was high the whole time.
Why didn't he send his associate? I'd be like,
Or
He's
literally like,
he's getting 20% of the book deal. That's
yeah, it's
why.
like,
He
"Hey,
wants-
Mike, you want to be on TV? Go get a tie."
right, or
Okay,
secretary.
okay. We're gonna break for take a commercial break. Jason, how do people find out more about the show and go to the site?
Warroom.org. We have great breaking news. Raheem and Jack and Greg and the entire team, a lot of new content constantly. The podcast. We just reached our 1,000,000th download on the podcast this past week, and so it's everywhere. Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, Apple, iTunes, Luminary. It's everywhere.
We're top 10 in the nation now, as far as news sites, not just impeachment. Number one on impeachment. Okay, we'll take a short commercial break. Boris Epstein, former special assistant to the president, Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon will be back on the Salem Radio and Newsmax TV network, America's Voice, in a moment.
War Room Impeachment. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to episode 121. We're live from Capitol Hill on a snowy, cold day here in Washington, Saturday, 18 January, year of our Lord 2020. Jason Miller of the 2016 greatest comeback in American political history, particularly American presidential history, communication strategist, and also was the communications director during the transition from President Trump and Boris Epstein. Basically one of his right-hand men on the campaign. Boris ran the surrogate program and did it well, and it was tough. I will tell you, every day, day in and day out against the mainstream media. Also, Boris was in the West Wing of the White House as a special assistant to the President of the United States, now at Sinclair Broadcasting, has joined the campaign on the advisory board as one of the top media on the right, is one of the top media strategists and actual people that can execute, which is very tough day in and day out. Okay, I want to go to I want to talk about Rudy, and then I want to talk about the legal team. Rudy in this dump, I don't think comes out that badly.
No, and in fact, this is, speaking very specifically to Mayor Giuliani, this is exculpatory for Mayor Giuliani. So in the Washington Post story, they have these communications, the back and forth with Parnas, and Rudy is in on this point. I just want to read this paragraph to you. The new materials also offered further indication of how Giuliani sent messages to Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky through Parnas. In one message released late Friday, Giuliani appears to ask Parnas to tell Zelensky through the Ukrainian prosecutor general that he needs to break with the Ukrainian oligarch who's associated with him and take more of the tycoon's assets for the state. Quote, show him my tweets and tell him to tell President-elect to stop acting like a boy and become a man and take control, Giuliani told Parnas. Arrest this bum and take more of his money back.
This is huge. This guy was Zelensky ran and won. Excuse me, as a stand-up comedian, but ran and won as anti-corruption.
Right.
His sponsor, one of the sponsors, was this oligarch, and the reason oligarch wanted to put in the young kid comic that he would clearly flip and be my hand puppet. And Rudy's telling him, stand up and seize his assets and show that you're anti-corruption. This is America's mayor. This is Rudy at the top of his game when he was Elliot Ness, putting Mike Milken and the Wall Street guys. He broke the 5 families. I mean, Rudy, when President Trump says he's an American hero, this is why Rudy's an American hero.
And it backs up the point that this whole thing is about fighting corruption.
Absolutely.
Not just by Rudy, but of course by the President of the United States. It is all about fighting corruption, and it goes back to what we talked about a couple months ago.
Yeah.
The president, under Youngstown Steel, is in the height of his authority when he executes the wishes of Congress. And you better believe, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, et cetera, it is the wish of Congress to eradicate foreign corruption.
Why are we not pushing this out harder? I know we are, but how this ought to be the mantra that shows you that Rudy was doing the right thing.
Oh, it absolutely should be. I mean, and we should also be pushing out Parnas's quotes, by the way, saying that Ukraine's a very corrupt place, saying you got to bribe the butcher, you got to bribe the ticket guy to get anything. In fact, I just kind of jotted down here, Viziamo Vikni, which is the broken windows in Ukrainian. So Rudy's over there trying to put away the bad guys.
Stop being a boy and be a man. Seize his assets and throw that bum in jail?
Yeah.
That's old school Rudy right there.
That's old school Rudy there. This is what Rudy was spending his time doing. I mean, he gave advice to the young president. The foreign minister and that same president, I think, would be the two best witnesses the president will have. So let's talk about that. Since it doesn't look like we're going to get a vote to dismiss, which I think is kind of, I'm 50-50 now. I always opposed it because Senator Braun and those guys I thought had a good reason that politically it would hurt the president long term. But now that you've got the legal team, Boris, first, you're a lawyer. And you also know how to fight unconventional warfare since you were on the Trump campaign in 2016. What do you think about that legal team?
I think it's a good team. I wish Alan Dershowitz wouldn't be on TV doing this strange dance.
What's the story? Is Alan Dershowitz represent the President of the United States, or does he represent the Constitution? I'm confused.
Well, according to him, he represents the Constitution. He's going to make this constitutional argument, which, as he says, helps the president, but he would make it for anyone else. He's trying to have it both ways, trying to still be invited to the party to Martha's Vineyard, when really you should say, if you're honest, that, you know what? I am representing the president. I'm part of the legal defense team. I'm not doing it necessarily on the merits, but I'm focusing on the Constitution. And also, you know what you do if you don't want to answer all these questions? Don't book yourself on a million interviews.
He's on Michael Smerconish. We're doing this show here in War Room Impeachment, here in the historic Breitbart Embassy. We have CNN on in the background. He's on TV doing Smerconish
I'm sure
right now.
Getting crushed by Smerconish is a smart guy and a smart lawyer crushing him right now.
What is the communications strategy behind him going on TV? I'm sure the White House doesn't want him on there.
He booked himself. And this
Why
is the
would
thing.
he?
The mainstream
Why would he want to
media,
do that?
to Boris's point, mainstream media was so smart. He was on primetime last night. He's got an amazingly compelling argument about this thing's a total farce and a joke. And he blows it, and he doesn't understand because, quite frankly, his ego's too big, that they're booking him for one reason, to jam him up on this question. Are you on Trump's team? Aren't you like the co-head, or aren't you the lead? No, I represent the Constitution. I didn't know the Constitution could have you as a client.
Is it paying? So I think he is somebody who's used to getting the kid glove treatment, the kid gloves from the media. Well, I'm Alan Dershowitz. I am God's gift to the Harvard, God's gift to the Constitution, so I'm sure they're going to treat me great. Next thing you know, you have Jeffrey Toobin, who is a bad former student of his, going after him.
Yeah, no.
I will tell you this.
Toobin, that was not a good...
On the merits.
You're a C.
On the merits, C, maybe a D+. On the merits, Dershowitz took Toobin to school on CNN. He proved that Toobin was actually lying, misrepresenting the Federalist. But
nobody's looking at Jeffrey Toobin and tell you what the Constitution is. Jeffrey Toobin.
They're looking. Jeffrey Toobin's got his own problems, but they're looking at Dershowitz and they're saying, "Well, why can't this guy say who his client is?" And that's the number one mistake you could make in media. Not being direct, not being specific.
But it's also driven the narrative now on the legal team. It's confused. Nobody knows what they're doing. I mean, he walked right into this.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and that's, you saw this yesterday where it gets leaked out or announced that Dershowitz is going to be on the team, and then he does literally a whole day of interviews. Like when I was leaving the studio yesterday, I'm driving back and I see on 124 on the POTUS network on Sirius, Alan Dershowitz. I'm like, oh, this is weird. And I turn up the volume and listen to it. He's on there basically backpedaling, saying he's not. But I used to think the most dangerous place in Washington was between Chuck Schumer and a camera. It might be between Alan Dershowitz and a camera.
Well, he's in Miami, to be fair.
Hold on. This is how bad it is. Not only when he couldn't get to the studio, he's doing the Skype interviews, the terrible Skype interviews. You get the big old fish head just to get up there and get jammed up, and he's getting jammed up on his show. Doesn't he understand after the first time he gets jammed up, maybe he ought to step back on this and let somebody else take the lead?
No. You got to go MSNBC, CNN, MSNBC. You got to do the whole dance. No, it's ludicrous. I wish somebody would call him up and say, hey, you know what? If you want to do this still, come in and do the constitutional argument. Get off TV.
But here's how. Okay, so Preet Braha was on this morning with also saying that the team. He was shocked about the team. He thought they're obviously very heavy duty lawyers, but there's so many controversial characters in there from previous, from either the Epstein case or more importantly, Monica Lewinsky makes a move. He wouldn't have done it that way. Are we getting the worst of both worlds of the conventional and the unconventional, where are our fire breathers?
I actually think it's a good thing, big picture. I do wish Dershowitz would stay in line more or would not do this dance, but that's going to be gone with this news cycle, and he'll be fine. Long term, he'll be fine. It's a good thing. It's good to have big names. And also, they added a good lawyer from Kasowitz Benson. They added a couple other lawyers whose names people don't know at home, but are really true attorneys.
Jane Raskin was
fabulous.
the hero
She's
behind
fabulous.
the scenes in the whole Russia hoax, and that's what people don't realize.
The Raskins are good lawyers.
Yeah, Marty and Jane Raskin, both former federal prosecutors.
They're
and deputy prosecutors.
workhorses,
Real lawyers.
not show horses.
And they were doing the real work behind the scenes with Mueller and with the DOJ and all that, and they are a massive part of the reason why President Trump never got.
But is
roughed
this
up
too?
in that
Is
witch
this
hunt.
is this too conventional? They think this looks like a C-SPAN legal team for really a global audience.
Yeah, but you got to remember the trial is not going to be an OJ trial. The way the Senate works itself out is that there's not a lot of cross-examination. It's not a lot of action. It's very slow. It's very deliberate. So the names are the story sometimes. So to have Dershowitz, no matter how it ends up, but he'll be fine. To have Ken Starr,
But do you
I
have
think
to
is a good
play?
thing.
But who says you have to play it slow and deliberate?
Just because that's how the Senate. The Senate rules, the rules of the chamber, the rules of procedure in the Senate are not the same as criminal justice rules.
But
in a
does it-
sham process where they're not going to dismiss this, why should Donald Trump play by the?
I think they should just dismiss it, by the way.
And if they don't, why should Donald Trump play by all the gravitas in the rules? Why play by that? They've a total sham process to get you here. Why do you let yourself be put in a straitjacket?
Well, you could just functionally, the way it works, they're in that room. You're supposed to most of it by writing. But if they go beyond it, they've got the workhorses there. Jane Raskin would be a great person to do a cross-examination.
But the fire breathers have gone through all 7,000 pages and have lived this testimony, have lived a Star Chamber. You've got Lee Zeldin, you've got Meadows, you got Jordan, right? Don't you want some of those guys? And when they go on TV to have in the Chiron, part of Trump's legal defense team?
So that is an issue that I've been thinking about a lot. Why are the House guys, the guys we know, Lee Zeldin, Gates, Jim Jordan,
why
are they not there? Part of the reason, I think, is because you have these jokes from the House as the managers. 6 out of 7 of them, 6 out of the 7 managers from the House, members, were for impeachment before the whistleblower ever made the complaint. So they would have impeached the president for walking down the street. So they have those jokes. What we are not doing is we're not putting up people who are counterbalanced to that. Do I wish we did? I do. Am I sure why it didn't happen? I'm not. I don't know why.
So one thing here, and by the way, when we talk about the audience and who's paying attention, I want to quote from the Wall Street Journal this morning, but the Trump team must also consider a second jury, American voters, who will be simultaneously be weighing the case in the court of public opinion, Trump allies said.
Whoa! Is that who's that? Is that Bender and?
Yeah, so it's Mike Bender and Rebecca Ballhaus.
They're listening.
They're listening to the show. They didn't credit War Room impeachment, but thank you, Mike and Rebecca. We appreciate your 2 downloads may have gotten us over the million mark, and so thank you very much. But this is a serious point. In yes, there is the Senate back and forth and the well of the Senate, but the real audience here is the American public. Here's why. Again, I wish we had our fire breathers in there. I've been hammering on this.
Why
for
don't
weeks.
we? Do you know?
Well, because the Senate didn't want it. And,
Exactly.
I mean, I think
McConnell didn't want it.
Yeah.
I think it's House of Lords, House of Commons. They just feel it would be. It's your whole point. It would be inappropriate and it break the gravitas and dignity.
Here's what I worry about. So I do like the construct of we have the adults. We have legal killers in Ken Starr and Robert Ray. I think Raskin's solid. I mean, look, we have some good people on the team. The guy from Kasowitz. I mean, Pat Cipollone's a good lawyer. Jane Raskin's
Jay
proven himself.
Sekulow.
Jay Sekulow, who's also very good on TV. we have some excellent lawyers stacked up against a bunch of partisan hacks and Schiff and Jeffries.
Right.
And like you said, 6 of the 7 push for impeachment even before the whistleblower. Here's where I get nervous as a Trump ally. When, number one, who on our team knows every detail of every moment of testimony, closed door, open door, the whole 9 yards, and can say, wait. But Vindman said on paragraph 32 of page 167 that we got to go to this, and here's a point that jammed him up, or I remember this was a key pivotal moment from back to who is our historical institutional expert on that team. I get nervous about that. And then when we get to the absolute street fight, like imagine, Boris, you're a big guy, you're tough. The only person I wouldn't want to run to more in a dark alley besides you is Corn Pop, the guy that Joe Biden famously stood down. Imagine you're running into Corn Pop in a dark alley and he's got his chain ready to hit you. Who is your person that you're going to send out to just cut the other guy's throat? I look at our team. I say we have a bunch of guys who are damn good lawyers, really tough professionals. Who's a bomb thrower and come up with some good one-liners? Because again, what turned OJ? You go back to it. The gloves don't fit. You must have quit.
Fit, you must have quit.
This even in the most static of courtrooms, there are always these communications vehicles that become bigger than the legal precedent.
Okay, talking about getting serious and hopefully getting on tomorrow to talk in more detail, I want to bring in now Curtis Ellis from America First Priorities with Boris Epstein. Curtis, can you hear us?
Oh yeah.
Okay. By the way,
analysis.
I love your commercials that we have on talking about the Chinese and what they're doing in the country. But Boris said earlier, this is kind of the noise, not the signal. What President Trump's been doing, and I said this on TV the other night, Thursday will be remembered 100 years from now as a historic date when USMCA and China, the China deal, were both done on the same day. And although both are not perfect, there's such massive improvements. And directionally, you see where President Trump is trying to take the country. To trade deals like that, one each gets done every 5 years.
No doubt about it.
2 got done in basically a year and a half. Absolutely stunning. Curtis, give us a summary. Why is that a more important date in American history than the start of the Senate trial of his impeachment?
Well, to Boris's point, this is what the voters in places like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin are paying attention to. Who's bringing us jobs? Who's defending us against what they have long known, but the elites missed? Who is defending us against China's predations? China's a predator. China's been destroying our industry, systematically stealing, taking our manufacturing. You could argue whether we gave it to them or they stole it, but either way, the voters in these industrial Midwestern states ended up as losers, and President Trump is the first person to come along and do anything about it. That's what crushed the blue wall, the fact that he addressed trade. And as I write in my column on WorldNet Daily, WND.com, it's on the front page right now, these 2 trade deals with China, with the rewriting of NAFTA, represent body blows against Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was the champion for China, and he still is. Come on, man, China's not our competitor. He voted for NAFTA. He pushed the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He was the point man for Obama on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It was President Trump, candidate Donald J. Trump, hammering the Trans-Pacific Partnership that gave him the margin of victory in these Midwestern states, in these industrial states. And I consider Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, is more Midwestern than it is Eastern. So these 2 trade deals that we saw come together in 1 week, in the space of 2 days, last week, represent huge body blows against his potential opponent, Joe Biden.
And look at the process, Curtis. Great points by Curtis. Look at the process of both of these. The president took his time on China. He increased the tariffs time over time, ratcheting up the pressure.
Great deal making.
China had the worst year for its economy.
30 years.
According to their own numbers they're releasing, which I'm sure are a lie, in 30 years. So he ratchets up the pressure, and then China completely folds, and now we have this strong phase 1 deal. We want the phase 2 deal, and the president's going to get that deal. He wants phase 2. He will get phase 2. USMCA, same thing. Round after round, rounds kept getting extended of the negotiations. And he said, you know what? I don't need to rush this. That's the strong deal making. That's the historic deal making.
Listen,
he abandoned the economic orthodoxy. For decades, the economic orthodoxy was you cannot use tariffs. Tariffs always bad, going to crash the economy, whatever, make the consumers pay more. All of that proven wrong. But most importantly, he abandoned the economic orthodoxy and went for this avowedly, proudly, unabashedly economic nationalist policy, because all these other guys, Democrats and Republicans, George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, Mr. New World Order, we were always negotiating for what's good for the world economy. Whereas the people on the other side of the table were negotiating for what's good for China, Germany, France, whoever.
Hang on for a second, because I'm going to go round robin. Here's what I don't get. You have a guy in Donald Trump that stood up against the orthodoxy, not of just academia, but the Republican Party orthodoxy on economics and Wall Street's, even and corporate America. The biggest challenge wasn't Canada, Mexico, and the Chinese, right, Beijing. It was the mindset of the people, of the powers that be on both left and right in the United States. He went out and what they thought was a radical plan with, quite frankly, guys like Curtis Ellis and Peter Navarro, right? Who in all honesty, are great guys, very smart, very tough, and get it, but are not on the short list for the Nobel Prize in economics, right? Because they're not part of the system, right? Trump wins, and it's a historic moment. Why? And President Trump is the greatest marketer we know. He is a marketer,
no doubt.
He understands what connects to American people. Why is this not what people are thinking about 24/7? I understand you got the trial and they're all over. You got the mainstream media. I'm going to go to Jason first, and then I'm going to go to Boris, and I'm going to finish with you, Curtis. This is so historic. It's so important. It's what the 2020 campaign is going to pivot on. It's why the economy. It's any shortness we have in the economy of manufacturing because the dollar's so strong. And here's the reason: the world votes every day on Donald Trump's economy, and that's why they want in. The dollar's so strong because people want in. The stock market's up. Our bonds are trading at all-time low interest rates. You've got no inflation. Everybody wants in on the action of Trump's economy. Okay, why are we not enveloped with that 24/7? It is so historic in actually doing it, and it's historic in the outcomes of it. Why is that not what we're living with? I'm going to start with my communication strategist, genius par excellence, Jason Miller.
Because that's good news for President Trump that will likely lead to his being reelected in 2020, and it's not damaging to him. In fact, I would say that on both CNN and MSNBC this week, we will hear more directly from Alan Dershowitz than we will about this historic phase one of the China deal.
He's going to Davos, but is this now that President Trump says, listen, he's got to think of the deal, he's got to negotiate the deal. Does now he put it on his shoulders and say, I've got to sell it, along with the White House communications and the RNC and the campaign and everybody? Is he got to take the lead like at Davos and make some historic speech and get everybody galvanized on what he's accomplished and then what's the next phase of it?
It has to be President Trump driving it. I mean, let's take a look at where President Trump, his numbers really started coming up when we had those great jobs numbers back in December 7th. Then it was around the 8th or the 9th. If you look at Real Clear Politics or 538, starting December 9th is when his job numbers really started coming up. Support for impeachment decreased. It was all because of the economic push. And I remember going to President Trump once, and I had a great statement written, and he looked and he said, this is good, but you know what? I'm going to say it instead. Because don't get me wrong, you're a nice guy, Jason, but no one really cares if you say anything. Like my self-confidence is decreasing. But he goes,
except your lovely daughter,
right? He goes, but if I say it, everyone's going to pay attention. He has to say it himself over and over and over, and it doesn't have to be a formal speech, Steve.
Yes.
He can just do a gaggle. Imagine if he did a gaggle for the world leaders and just start dropping this fire for a global audience. It'd be a win.
We got 2 minutes. I'm going to go to Curtis real quickly. Curtis, your thoughts and finish with Boris. Curtis, what do you think you ought to do?
Well, look, the media is in a business where they never say they're wrong. That's why we're not hearing about this, and that's why we're not hearing about these achievements with China and the USMCA and the economy.
All you hear from them is that how these deals don't accomplish everything. Hey, no deals ever accomplish everything.
They don't like to talk about the stock market, that's for sure.
They never mention that.
So the president needs to make his case again in Davos because that is the high church of free trade, the high church of globalism, and he needs to, and that's where he can underscore and really throw the money lenders out of the temple. I mean, he's going right into the temple.
I'm going to go a different way on that.
And say, look, my model's working. Your old incantations don't work. You're like Pharaoh's magicians here. It ain't working. I'm getting it done.
Okay, Boris, what do you got to say?
So Davos is good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. He'll talk to the people over there. He'll have a gaggle or make a speech. But really, it's all about the rallies. It's about going to the states. It's going to the battlegrounds and telling the people who are still showing up, they don't care about anything, any opener, any music. All they want to see is Donald Trump. They want to wear their hat, the MAGA, the KAG hat, and say, keep America great. And for him to tell them,
but doesn't the base know this? In Davos and other places, you're starting to get that 5 or 10% that still don't really understand, and all they're hearing is the beatification of Lev Parnas.
I don't think that the Davos thing is as important as him going and maybe having rallies in the moderate places.
Real quick, Hulu dropped their trailer yesterday on Crooked Hillary, her closing line. You want to make a difference? You want to have an impact? Well, then, you've got to get in the arena. Folks, Crooked Hillary is going to run. You've heard it here.
It's Hillary 2020. Okay, tomorrow morning we'll be back with episode 122, War Room Impeachment, 7 days a week until the acquittal and exoneration of Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the United States. I want to thank Boris and Curtis.
Thanks.